So the second one we were looking at was when the guy said that's a crock of shit. When McCready tested his own blood and then decided that he's not a thing. And the guy said that's a crock of shit. And then the last video, in the Standardized With Me video, I was saying that this is ambiguous, what he really means by that. And it is ambiguous. But what I want to say here is that it's not an argument. I mean, it's just an assertion. He says that's a crock of shit. And if for example, McCready were to have said, well, why do you say that? Then the guy might have offered an argument, or might have offered reasons for this conclusion that whatever he's referring to is a crock of shit. So that's not an argument. The next one we looked at was when they tested those two dead guys. The same guy that said that's a crock of shit said, so Clark was human, which makes you a murderer. He says this to McCready. So that's an argument, though. So what's he saying? He's saying Clark is human. McCready killed Clark. If you kill humans, then you're a murderer. Therefore, McCready's a murderer. That seems pretty deductive. It doesn't exactly, as it's written here, it doesn't fit one of the conditional argument forms that we know of. But it's very possible that this could be rewritten as one of those conditional argument forms that we know of. I didn't do it here, but you could possibly plug in Clark and McCready into the conditional terms and get one of the familiar conditional argument forms. Anyways, this seems pretty deductively true. But think about this. I mean, when McCready killed Clark, he didn't kill Clark knowing that he was a human. Because if McCready had known that Clark was a human, he wouldn't have killed him. Because that's not what he was trying to do. He wasn't trying to kill a human. He was trying to kill the thing. So McCready killed Clark thinking that Clark was the thing. So did McCready have good reason to think that Clark was the thing? I forget what. But it would whether or not McCready is a murderer would at the very least depend on how good McCready's reasons were, how reasonable it was for McCready to think that Clark was the thing, So even though this, and without investigating this anymore, I just want to say, even though this appears to be it seems to be pretty deductively certain, it could also be leaving out some crucial information that McCready. Oh, I mean, well, killing humans. If you kill a human, then you're a murderer. Is that always true? Oh, this is what it kind of turn on. Is it true that if you kill a human, then you're a murderer? Is that true? No, it's not true. When you're in war and you kill someone, is that murder? No. If I accidentally run over somebody, in my car, is that murder? No. So it's not just killing someone that makes you a murderer. So we could kind of tweak that definition of what it means to be a murderer in such a way that it would absolve McCready of this label of murderer. But the only thing I wanted to point out was that there are there's other relevant information to this that would seem to kind of reduce the certainty that it's appropriate to say that McCready is a murderer. The last argument we looked at in Standardized With Me was this one about Palmer. Well, no, actually, this isn't even one that was offered in the movie. This was just kind of implicit in that final scene when the blood jumped out of the petri dish and all hell broke loose. Just kind of implicitly in that. If you could imagine McCready thinking to himself, standardizing the whole situation to himself in some kind of voiceover. If someone's the thing, then their blood will crawl away. Palmer's blood did crawl away. Therefore, Palmer is the thing. Okay. You can picture kind of voiceover. Again, what is the form of this argument? If A, then B, therefore A, affirming the consequent, which is not a good deductive argument form, right? It's not a good deductive argument form. But, so, from considering that it's not a good deductive argument form, we're also kind of saying at the same time that it doesn't necessarily follow that Palmer's the thing. There could be some other explanation for it, for why the blood jumped out of the petri dish. So the fact that it's not deductively certain allows for other possibilities to be the case, like, any number of angels and demons and other aliens. Maybe there's a whole bunch of different aliens running around, and this one that happened to infect this guy was not the thing. It was some other alien. Could be that you can just think of a million different explanations, right? So it's not deductively valid. This argument isn't deductively valid, but you'd still want to say it's good reason. The fact that, forget about the conditional. Just that Palmer's blood, forget about this conditional one. Sorry. Palmer's blood crawling away from a hot needle is still, just this one premise alone is still pretty good reason to think that Palmer's the thing, right? Regardless of this conditional up here. So, that's an example of how a deductively invalid argument could still have pretty strong inductive. It could still have pretty good inductive reasons. Does that make sense, folks? I think that's all I want to say. Thanks for joining me, though.